It's because he sent me cookies that one time. He thinks he owns me. I actually did send Doug a box of black and white cookies after the first time he was on.
Nice.
It was very professional.
Yes, look to the cookie. All right, I can hear whoever's typing.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a traditional intro. We'll just try to make it sound classy.
Yeah.
Especially if they're watching the video version and not listening to the audio. I feel like the audio folks get screwed by all the hand gestures and the things that we try to do, Joe.
I mean, they miss out on a lot of just the glory that is the video, because like I think we both are fully aware of how many hours we spend in makeup before we actually get in front of the camera. They're denied that amount of the production.
It takes hours to look this ugly, by the way. So this is what you get after all that time in the chair. But episode 100, here we are. How we doing?
Yeah, we made it.
Woohoo!
I decided to match your extra punctuation, Chelsea and Joe.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh man, how'd you do that?
Yeah, he's like excited, but he's not sure why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nate?
Ron Burgundy? Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I feel like we got to do some reintroductions for folks, because we are joined by some friends of ours who have helped us along the way. I told myself I was not going to get emotional, but we've decided to bring back one of the original co-hosts of this show. Chelsea has joined us again. Chelsea, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great, gentlemen. It's good to be here.
Always good to have you back. I mean, this is the first time you've been back, but just so you know, when you come back again, we'll be equally thrilled.
Yes, I'm a re-returner, so here I am.
Yeah, this isn't a one-shot deal. We didn't have to like sell the farm to get her back. It's like she's here willingly. She wanted to come back, right?
I sure did. Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of thinking about it, and then miraculously Joe popped in and was like, "Hey, you want to join us for our 100th episode?" Kismet.
Well, he was like, "Actually, could you help me move first?" And then he was like, "But also, there's this going on."
Well, you can't help a friend out virtually without moving a couch for them in real life, right? That's how it goes.
I heard he said, "I'm doing a show with 4 guys on it. You want to come along?"
Yeah, we need to improve these demographics a little bit here.
A little bit. Like, we were gonna have some other dude, but 5 guys is already taken, and we just really need to switch things up. And it would be it's much better with Chelsea anyway.
Ah, too kind.
Well, welcome back, Chelsea, and we also are joined by someone that's the crew would actually recognize here, which is Nate, my older brother. Nate, how's it going?
I'm older now. I'm older as of a couple of days ago. So nice to be here from a hotel room this time. But glad I could make it.
Well, I mean, the good news is you can do anything to those sheets and they'll have to change them. So you be our guest.
And you are just 2 guys short of a pizza party. But I mean, that shouldn't stop you.
I saw 2 guys smoking outside. I could go get them.
Yeah. You could ask them if they've got big gulps and then just say, "See you later."
Exactly.
Well, our final guest for this week, not going to speak like Shatner the whole time, Joe, is...
I wish you would.
So a frequent collaborator of ours on this show when it comes to video games, but he was also the very first guest we ever had on this program. Welcome back, Doug Eberle. Doug, how we doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, man. I think it's weird to even say that you were the first guest, but it's true. You were the first.
I think you say that every time, and every time I forget and I'm shocked. Because I've also been back about, I think this might be my 7th time or something like that. So
He's catching up to me.
Yeah. And hopefully I will beat you someday. That is the goal.
Oh, Doug, I would love to come back for that episode.
It's crazy how fast time passes, of course. I mean, I think that's really what I still am having a hard time getting over here is that every time we've had a chance to do an episode together, it doesn't matter who on this call, it's like it just feels like time kind of disappears in between those times. And so I'm just happy to be here again with you all doing this. It's a revival of an idea that we actually had back in season 1, where we went through the games that made us, and we were trying to pick the games that didn't make us cry, but definitely were ones that impacted us quite a bit. So I had to go last time because nobody wanted to go. Do we have a volunteer this time to discuss the game that made you, or I should say the second game that made you? What are we thinking?
I will go first.
Yeah, Doug should go first.
Since we talked about it earlier and it seemed like nobody else wanted to, and I basically got stuck with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the very thorough process we go through when we have more than one guest on the show. It was basically the adult version of a nose goes.
And I do have a little special surprise. So I don't know if anybody else here has the actual physical copy of their game, but I will be showing my game like a show and tell sort of situation here, as well as my runner-up game too. So if you're listening by audio only, I'm sorry, I'll try to describe it. And the first, my game that made me is Super Dodgeball. See that?
Oh,
It's Super Dodgeball, which something I didn't know about this when I was a kid is it's actually part of something called a Kunio-kun series, which included many other games that I just would have described as having the characters that looked like this. So some of those are like World Cup, Renegade. The most commonly known one is probably River City Ransom. And they have these very crazy looking characters. And the weird thing is they're part of this series, but they're all very different games. So Super Dodgeball is this game where, you can pick from all these different countries to play dodgeball against each other. And, each country has different stats and the characters and different weird names for the guys. And, it's 2-player versus mode, and you can pick it up and play it really fast. This is a really, really great game to just play against one of your friends, or like I started out playing against my brother who's 2 years younger than me. We were always, 2-player games are always going to come up as a top of my list because I was basically stuck playing them. There was never really a time when I was having video games that were, making me where I got a chance to actually play alone. It was like he was always there, and if I even tried to play alone, he would, go running off to my mom and say that I didn't want to play with him and things like that. So yeah, I used to really just kick his ass at this game. And then, this is actually the exact disc, cartridge that I had from when I was a kid. You can see there's some sticker on here. Apparently it was $14.99 used. I do not know from where. Probably my grandfather got it for me because I used to get like used games from places that were going out of business. But anyway, it's still the original one I had, and I still play it sometimes with friends. They'll come over. I can't even tell you how many people I've played this with over the years. And another great thing about this game is if you've played it and you're familiar with it, you'll know about the special moves. So there's this kind of mode where you can supercharge your dodgeball, and each character has these different, essentially like special moves akin to like Mortal Kombat. Like this is not just dodgeball. You're essentially fighting each other, and you will literally kill the other players with your special moves. Sometimes you'll hit them so hard you see all the life drain out of them, and they'll turn into a little ghost as they fly away. And it's really great.
I saw that happen in a movie where we're pretty sure that guy died.
Are you talking about with the window?
I've never seen a dodgeball where the cobras like show up in a bar and like she just chucks the ball at a guy next to a jukebox and he just goes down.
Yeah.
And like a minute later, a character's like, I think that man is dead, and he's just still out.
They could have easily been inspired by this game. It is a very intense dodgeball game. I don't really know many other dodgeball games, to tell you the truth. This one's called Super Dodgeball, which was confusing as a kid because, like, you think, like, you know, like you're like in second grade and like some kid tells you one of those lies and be like, oh, I have regular dodgeball, you know, that one's better or something like that. But like, that doesn't even exist. There's only Super Dodgeball. And it's for NES. You know? So it's one of those games
you're out there killing people
on NES and causes all sort of confusion.
And I have to say, that is a glossy as all heck copy you got there. Is that like an original? Have you kept that in such good shape? Or
let me show you.
Is that a recent purchase?
It looks.
I love.
Well,
I love that you have it in the protector too. Yeah. Like amazing, amazing.
So the front.
Did anyone else hear the slip out the sheath?
Now I'm going to show you.
We're going to need to get that soundbite.
Just wait for this. The back is crusty. I don't know what's on it. Maybe some coffee from like 10 years ago or some. I have no idea what that substance is. But
excellent.
I actually think that happened inside of my system because my NES, I lost the top window to it a long time ago. And I have maybe like 20 games, but this one was inside most of the time. And I think that something dripped in there and then, you know, kind of sat in it. So yeah, it looks nice and shiny from the front, but it is alas crusty.
They call it a soup kitchen.
Dirty Mike and the boys.
Yeah, Dirty Mike and the boys left you a letter that night. You just got to find it. All right. So yes, Doug, we really do appreciate your first entry that you're sharing with us. Do you have anything else that you want to say about it though before we move on?
Give me 1 second. Not really. I mean, just get rid of this. I did my thing. Right. It's done.
We'll take that out.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we're going to do next is go to Nate, because I think Nate probably has a game that I want him to say quickly so that if I have to change mine, I will. But Nate, go ahead.
It's probably not the one you're thinking because you didn't enjoy this one as much as I did. So I actually have it running right now. So I can have a little reveal here. It's a Micro Prose presentation.
Oh my God.
Design.
This is a Civilization.
You bet you it is.
Yeah. Nice. Such a good choice.
I have wasted, in lifetime hours, I've probably 6 months maybe of my life on that game.
Wow.
Because there's just more and more turns. It never ends. And, we first there was a classmate at school that was rumored to have had it. His name was Bo. And our older brother, who never appears on the podcast, he said that Bo doesn't really like you, but he's got a copy of Civilization. And I said, okay. So I went to Bo and said, hey, Bo, where'd you get a copy of Civilization? Can I borrow it? And he goes, yeah, sure, no problem. So I think our old brother is just screwing with us. But we played that game just constantly, all night, all day. Beginning to end, you can play that game 4,000 years into the future. And it's the original. And they've made one since. 2 was better. They added some other ways to win, but the original just still holds my attention to this day. Creating your own civilization and then waxing, taking Gandhi down.
I was gonna say him and those nukes, man. He was just always ready to deploy.
Putting him in his self-righteous place.
Well, it's like, he's like, oh, hey, I'm all peaceful and stuff. And then he comes, and he comes and he's violating your treaties. And you got to wipe him off the map as early as possible. Between him and Genghis Khan, those, you want to wipe them out before they have any chance to even get close to you. But I think just that part of it was a game where you were writing your own narrative. You could have, and it always felt like you could win if I just played a little bit longer. But you start as a caveman civilization and work your way up to the future. And it was really interesting that he had a lot of insight into the kinds of technologies that might actually, and it seemed like there was research put into this game as far as how did societies develop, what were the kind of features they had. So you're almost getting like a pseudo sociological lesson, and you didn't even know it.
Yeah.
So,
does it end?
It ends when you either make it to Alpha Centauri, lose, or take over the world and destroy all the other civilizations, which was usually the way we ended it. And, we like to step on ants. And so what we would do is we would just, usually when I get towards the end as a kid, I would just keep building nukes and just keep nuking the same town over and over and over, like their last town. I would just nuke it, and just keep advancing in technology. And then they would come and try to negotiate you and go, please let us go, and we'll give you all the money we have. And it was always zero, because they're trying to build up. And so you just keep nuking them, just keep making them suffer.
So you keep your irradiated stones. I don't want them.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Like, we turn your entire city to glass. Every space around you has like nuclear damage and fallouts, these little black pollution spots around them. So they can't build anything around it, but like it allowed you to be amazingly cruel. And between me and my older brother, we would split time on this or play together at the same time. When one of us would get tired on it and just roll on. So I played 3. I played a little bit of 4 and 5. Played Civilization Revolution. But the original still, I still play it. I put it on every retro computer I start on. I could have gone with the obvious here, which Mark and I we already did a whole episode kind of on Secret of Monkey Island. But honestly, life-wise, I've probably played more Civilization. So.
I was going to say, that era, I would always kind of walk past the room and I would watch a little bit of what was going on. I don't think the need to nuke the same city over and over again passed over to me. I think I can be cruel in different ways, but I do remember that. It was the maniacal laughter that it's hard to forget when you did that.
Yeah, it was just more funny because you got to see them. It's like the AI in the game continually tries to make peace with you to stop bombing them, and you just laugh as you just hurl more and more nukes into the planet. Because there's no country out that's ever done anything. I mean, if it'd be funny, even like if the Japanese had said, "Hey, yeah, you hit us," and you just keep hitting Hiroshima over and over and over again. It's like you could. It was like the first. It was almost like the first intro into a game that.
Did you see that snicker that Nate just did? Like, you're proud of that.
No, it was like it's like in Grand Theft Auto the first time you hit a guy on a bike at full speed. Like, it lets you do yourself that you want to be. Because that's what Mark used to do. We played Grand Theft Auto with Vice City. They put bikes in the game, and he would hit every bike he saw. Yeah. There's a little craziness in all of us, and this was like this introduced you to that as a kid, to go, when you're winning, you win a little bit more, and you can have the ant under the magnifying glass in this game all you wanted, as long as you're winning. And then you're getting attacked on the backside barbarians. So
some people pay for that. I look at it as yes, there are little things like that in games that make you crack up, and they're very fun. But yes, I do remember this game fondly because of how much you guys played it. I mean, this wasn't the one where I bonded with you guys over that. I think Nate and I would bond over some RPGs later on. But
I was going to mention one of those too, but that's my backup game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Let's not give too much away.
Yeah.
No. Now, rather than let you go, I'm going to jump in. We're going to do a little combo breaker here.
Okay.
Because I didn't actually pick an older game. I picked what we'll call, like, if me getting older as a shuttle, this was like the first part that broke off, and then this was the next thing, right?
So you picked chess. You went with chess. You just went with a physical game.
So, hold on a second. Now, Joe, you remember my push for 100 platinum trophies on PlayStation Network, and how stupid that whole thing was.
I swear to God, if you picked Orc Slayer for this.
No. Don't put that on me. Don't put that on me. No, not that horrible, shitty game. Although I came close to Puss in Boots. We're not going to do that though. That made me for a different reason. Doug's like terrified. He's like, Puss in Boots. What the hell are you talking about?
I mean, I love the story. I had a pop-up book of it as a child. I didn't know about a game. Could be okay.
To this day, it's the only video game I played that caused me to spike the controller on the ground, therefore breaking it. So I'm going to keep that trauma to myself for a little bit yet. But what I first thought of was 2014's Borderlands, the pre-sequel, which aptly named because it takes place after Borderlands 1, but before Borderlands 2. And people complained a lot about Borderlands 1 having a very loose, like just unattached like storyline. There just wasn't a whole lot going on there. And I completely agree with this because you're pretty much just playing very beautiful avatars doing crazy things and cursing a lot. So it wasn't that fleshed out. But then Borderlands 2 comes out, introduces the Handsome Jack character, who is voiced by Damian Clark. If any of you have seen Supernatural, he eats a whole bunch of flesh and things go bad. But he ends up voicing Handsome Jack. It's one of the best like video game villains of all time. But then they got the idea, why don't we create a video game where we explain how Handsome Jack became who he was? Because it's like, we talked about how some bad guys are a little bit more interesting when we know their motivations and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Other times it's great when we don't know any of that. So it was kind of like a combination of both. Like Borderlands 2 introduces you like this just sadistic and crazy motherfucker. You don't know why he's that way. And then the pre-sequel gives you this like front row seat to that process. So for me, I'm like sitting there going, man, I actually am cool with him shooting that person randomly. Like, and that's like step one of him doing bad things, right? And so I fell in love with Borderlands 2. I think I recommitted that love with the pre-sequel because of just how awesome that development was for Handsome Jack's like story. And then to make things even better, this was developed by obviously Gearbox Software, but then the arm of 2K who published it was based in Australia. So like you're taken away from the normal English speaking people, just standard like American accents in the first two games. Then suddenly you're dropped into this like moon environment and everyone's got this Australian accent going on. So
well, I knew Australia was far away, but
yeah, but it's hilarious though. It's like the rest of the Borderlands games take place on like Pandora, and then suddenly the moon is their version of Australia. So it was really funny how that worked out. So the reason why this game made me was because of the narrative that Handsome Jack as a character, he was, a company man at first. He was not someone who was batshit crazy, none of that stuff. And you get to see little by little how his choices eventually turn him into this mass murderer who, wears a mask and is usually covered in blood. And so what I thought was interesting about that is that, yes, some of the villains that we see in movies, they fall into a vat of something, or, they see people murdered in front of them. No, this dude just had to keep making choices. He makes the wrong ones consistently, and then he becomes one of the most hated people in the entire galaxy. So it's like that to me was enough. But then at the end of the game, the Heavy is routinely brought in to do music for the Borderlands series. And the song at the end of this game was What Makes a Good Man. And so I'm like, oh man, they did a really good job tying this together. And What Makes a Good Man was one of my favorite songs. So as soon as I hear that, I'm like, okay, I feel like a tear's got to happen. But
that's awesome.
And this
so
is before
awesome.
Mark had children. He was moved to tears.
I'm not familiar with this game, but everything you're saying is making me really want to play it. The character development that you're speaking of kind of reminds me of like a Negan from Walking Dead type of character.
Nice, yeah.
Where there was this book they put out like after the whole thing was done, where it shows how he was created, and really he's just this normal person who, by circumstance, ends up that way. It's an interesting development. That sounds pretty cool.
Doug, I was thinking that the pre-sequel was just going to be filler until we got the third game in the series, but then as I'm getting into this, I'm like, holy crap, this has got its own like whole ass narrative going on here. It's not just like DLC that became a full game or something. It's like, no. This is actually a legit story. So if you were one of those people that played Borderlands, went through 1, went through 2, and decided to skip this one, like it was just a huge mistake. Just basing that alone. Well, tell you what, I got one more fact I want to add, and then we'll hand it off. But Joe, there's another reason why you would be invested in this game potentially.
Is it because they tell you how handsome Jack is so handsome?
Partially.
Yes, perfect. I need to know more.
Yeah, the truth is he was handsome from the beginning, but
yeah, just good looking man.
That's what happens with handsome people.
It's true.
And life's just
they
easier.
Start out that way. God damn it!
Just easier when you're pretty, isn't it? So the composer for this game, Joe, was Jesper Kyd, same dude.
Ooh.
Giving all that audible love to the Assassin's Creed series, so it kind of has my loyalty. That's never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but yes, that is that made me, because of just how great the narrative was, and I was starting to lose a little bit of enthusiasm after having played Borderlands games for roughly 400 hours. So it was like, this one brought me back somehow. Holy crap, that's how much I loved it. So we have Chelsea and Joe left.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to flip the coin to see who goes next?
I'm actually going to defer this to Chelsea, because the last time we did this, I stole her game and we picked the same one and put her in a very awkward position.
Hey.
And friends don't do that twice.
Hey, it was a good thing I came equipped with a very, very... I was torn between 2 choices, and so you just made the choice for me last time.
This is true. Mm-hmm.
But, it's okay. I will go first, although I'm fairly confident that you will not be sniping this game for me this time.
Okay, as long as it's not Farm Simulator, we're good.
It is not a farm simulator. I did agonize over this choice, and believe me, I did think about all of my hours spent digitally farming, but decided, that's just something I do in my free time, and that's for me. So that doesn't make me. No, I did. I agonized. I thought Atari, no, that won't do it. I thought maybe my normal Nintendo or even the 64, some of those other games. But really, if I'm being honest with myself, the game that made me was in 2002, the best-selling PC game of all history, which is the original The Sims.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I know. It's either a game I feel like you've played it or you haven't, but everybody knows. And I feel like most people, especially people in our generation, have dabbled a little bit with controlling people's lives in their hands, drowning Sims in pools, burning them in teeny tiny rooms filled with furniture. And all the such. So yeah, that's the game that I feel like really kind of launched me into doing things and following titles maybe that were more for myself and not ones that other people introduced me to, because the things like Zelda and Mario and Galaga and all of these other amazing things, which definitely make me who I am, were brought to me by somebody else, which is amazing, and I love that. But The Sims was something that was like my thing and my friend's thing. And it was amazing. It's what got me into, opened the doorway into like modding on PC and, doing fun things like that let you open doorways outside of what just came in a regularly developed game. So that was super cool. And then also it was one of those things that I could do while hanging out with my friends in the background. Like, Joe, I don't know how many countless hours we spent. Now, this is after a decade of me playing this series already in different capacities. But of you sitting on the couch playing something and then me there with my little laptop, you'd think that we maybe were some of the most antisocial people in the world. But really what we were doing was bonding.
Yeah, we're having the time of our freaking lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Chelsea's playing The Sims and Joe's like knitting, right? Like that's usually how that would go
Yes,
down.
yes. Joe is an excellent knitter.
Mm-hmm.
Crocheting, yeah.
You need a scarf, you just let me know.
But for real, especially in like, I don't know, I had a friend growing up and her and she had this great basement set up where she had a PC and then we had a TV and everything like that down there. And we would just switch on and off between, okay, someone is running whomever we're playing on The Sims right now. And then the other person is either crushing it in Dance Dance Revolution until they can't stand it anymore, you know, which is good, getting some physical activity in with your days-long gaming sessions. Or just, I don't know, some other Katamari or Grand Theft Auto. I mean, it's just one of those things, it's pausable, but there's a story there and you can devote all of your time into doing it, but you can also kind of be social while doing it as well too. It's just the best.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you have to spend any time with a counselor to discuss the feeling you get when a thief enters the screen when the burglar shows up?
You know what? I love that crap. I love when stuff like that happens. And wanna know what's just awful? Those things don't happen in the new Sims games anymore.
Oh, God.
What?
Yeah. You don't get burglars in the games anymore. And it is something that I absolutely hate. The reason I went so far as to be like, where the fuck are my burglars? You know, like Googling online, why is no one burgling me? Am I not good enough to burgle? Is my stuff not good enough to burgle? What's going on? But no, it was taken out because of it's triggering for people, apparently. So they removed it completely from the game. And it kills me. No.
I see you on the couch, just screaming, "Oh, you think you're better than me? Huh?
You think you're better than me?"
Is this like people have been burgled in real life and now they
had so
can't
many
handle it?
mods for it? So
Yes.
you could pretty much custom build it any way you wanted it. I know that I pirated it, and brought it home for the summer. And I can remember Mark probably watched it and he played it a little bit, but what I did was I downloaded all the skins for the X-Men and then built like a little camp.
Yes.
And the problem with the camp is no matter what I did, I couldn't get Psylocke to stick around. He was just miserably unhappy that they were sleeping on bunks and they had no privacy. And so what we did was we also had downloaded a skin for the Predator.
Oh yeah.
Camp. And the problem with the Predator is like no matter when he turned on a stove, it would light on fire every single time. He would light on.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is when she tried to leave, we just put a little room around her and then put like 12 stoves kind of boxing her in. And then we had the Predator come in and try to cook and he set the entire kitchen on fire.
Yeah.
To death, and then we sold her urn for money. So
Exactly.
it can be as weird as you want.
It's for everybody. It really is.
Nobody leaves the camp. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. It's amazing. Back in the day too, it was like, I will never forget like our little PC at home on dial-up. First of all, downloading mods on dial-up, kill me now. But
Did
also,
that take like a day?
oh my God, yeah, they're small downloads, but yeah, it's not quick. And it was way before there were any, clients that managed that kind of stuff or really trustworthy places that you could go and download things from. I mean, you were literally just out there on the web, like hoping that this thing isn't going to just destroy my parents' computer because I'm going to be in so much trouble.
Yeah. It's going to take you a long time, and then you're going to be in trouble at the end of it. Like, it's just not worth it, the risk.
Yeah. In the games now, there's this huge modding community. There's huge content creation. You can instantly, upload things into your game that's been created out in the community without even closing it down. I mean, it's awesome. It's really come a long way, and it's really cool to see that the developers have really embraced that drive from the community to really make the game truly the players.
Yeah.
Versus, there's a lot of other developers out there that will try to do anything they can to keep that from happening in their communities. So I don't know. It's cool.
Also gives players access to like licensed IPs that they might want to use.
Yeah.
It's not the developer doing it, and so that way you can add things in that you would never be able to have.
Yeah.
If the mods are free and there's no one going to go after them, you can really customize the way you wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like
It's really cool.
Pulling the ladder up out of the pool to drown all those people you don't like at the party.
I'm really annoyed about this person. I don't really want them in my family anymore. This is before we can just make them move out. I'm going to kill them.
One of them was dating my daughter, and so I let him go in the pool and I pulled the ladder up.
I can only hope that someone in Nate's game broke out into song after they realized that if the predator bleeds, you can kill it.
Yes. Yes.
Assassin.
Do you know how many ways you can die in that game? There's so many too.
It has to be endless.
It really is crazy. I mean, death by flies is possible if your house gets too dirty. A swarm of flies can come and just kill you, or maybe you're playing a later game and you can be like exploring some ancient ruin and you leave with an ancient curse, and that's bad news bears.
Mm-hmm.
It's
no
great.
one likes malaria on a vacation.
More like the curse of the mummy.
That's life. That's life.
Yeah.
That stuff happens, right?
It sure does. Brendan Fraser taught me that.
Oh man, I actually I'm kind of surprised that I didn't think about that a little bit more myself, because I put in tons of hours on The Sims years later. But yes, that is a fantastic choice, which does bring us to Joe. We hope you didn't pick The Sims. What is your choice?
Well, this is embarrassing. I did not pick The Sims. I went with a game that I played, I think, well before I had met anyone in this fantastic 100th episode of ours. And this one, I think, truly made me. It was basically my equivalent of Rocky in my video gaming life. And that is, one, because it is a fighting game. And I think, especially when Chelsea and I first met, we bonded over The Legend of Zelda. But outside of The Legend of Zelda, my go-to home in the video game world was fighting games. Like I had Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which I'd gotten for $15 at a movie gallery.
Yeah,
exactly. It was incredible. I got like a ridiculous deal on that. And then I remember like I sold it to the video game store that was beneath us. And I think I got like $175 for it.
So much money. You were able to eat for a year now.
I know, and still get more video games. And they still had the movie gallery stamp on the disc, and they're like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I'm like, "I know, it's pretty great." But fighting games was kind of my bread and butter for the longest time. And I remember growing up, I actually had gotten so good at like Street Fighter 2, I actually had to start losing against my brother on purpose. Because he would get so mad, he'd start kicking doors and slamming things, and this would lead to my parents taking the Genesis away from us. So I'm like, well, if I want to keep the Sega Genesis, I just have to lose. I have to throw a fight. I can do that. So that's where I was for quite a while, until the Nintendo 64 came around. And the same friend who had made the mistake of lending me the Ocarina of Time, because it took him a solid year and a half to get it back, also picked up a copy of the fighting game that really brought me back into the fold, and that is Super Smash Brothers.
Nice.
It was the game that had everything to me. Even its advertising was fantastic, where you had your guys in suits of like Pikachu, Donkey Kong, and Yoshi and Mario, like in a field with happy together playing in the background. They just start freaking brawling. This is the one that just worked for me and everything. And it was a pretty simple game. You take the idea of, we're taking a bunch of characters that Nintendo has all the licensing rights to, so they don't have to be incredibly creative with what they're doing. All of the levels are either oddly original, or they are pertaining to the characters that are in the fighting game. You had 12 original characters that were playable. You had to unlock some as you went along, but really I only needed one, and that was Pikachu. My go-to little electric mouse that zipped around everywhere, hit hard, and there was nothing more satisfying than the crack of the fucking home run bat in that game. Oh my God. When you would send another player just fucking flying. Oh, nothing's better. And the only way to kind of made it better than having Pikachu do it is you could eventually unlock Jigglypuff. And when you would unlock like different characters, or you'd have multiple characters, you could choose like something small to differentiate them from each other. So if you had 2 Jigglypuffs, you could have one with like a green party hat, one would have like a red like karate bandana, and we would make jokes that they're the master of the jiggy arts, and you just like start pounding and knocking people off the screen. But like it was fantastic. Like the modes were simple. So you had like a really like relatively simple story mode. I think even one of the developers said that like it's nothing that's going to take you a lot of time to complete. It's literally kind of like a classic like going up through like a tower or a quick map of other characters, and then you reach the final boss, who is just a giant floating hand. So nothing special. So really the heart of this game does come from like just like the versus mode, where I would play with my buddy Vince Hoffman all the time. And like where I said that this is like the Rocky for me, it's because like I could like rarely ever beat him at that fucking game. Like as hard as I tried, as much as I would train, he was the Goku to my Vegeta, and I could not surpass him.
An adversary appears.
Yes. Whereas like I think he felt good about it because like I'd wipe the floor with him in Pokemon pretty consistently, but like I couldn't beat him at this. And it wasn't until like you get like I think you got Melee, then Brawl, and then eventually you get to where you are now. But when you released it for the GameCube under your title, he couldn't touch me in that one, and then he refused to play Super Smash Brothers anymore. So that was my Rocky 2, where I finally beat Apollo Creed. But this was the movie that really hooked me because of just how well the game played. And even for as simple as it was incredibly successful because it sold like 5.5 million copies like globally. So it did really, really well. And it was one of those relatively like quasi early Nintendo 64 titles, I think, or not even. And if it wasn't one of the early ones, I think it was just one that was so big, it just like felt like it was defining of the system. So it was just when it came to fighting games, you had all those like the 12 different characters with unique fighting styles to themselves, but really I just needed my smash attack and my thunder to mess people up, and then an occasional Pokeball to throw at someone. And even though like you could have like Pokeballs when they'd throw out, sometimes they were incredibly useful, like Charizard, and other times they were incredibly useless, and it was just cool to see Mew fly up and away. You were a little sad that he didn't help you out, but you know what? You saw the rarest Pokemon in existence in 1999, and you can hear it in the background right now in Mark's house.
No, it's not my house.
It's not you? I thought that. Oh, is that? That's Bumblebee.
That's Bumblebee. It's my cat. I was just like swatting her away like crazy.
And that just makes the cat want it more, of course.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. So, well, I'm really happy we all had unique games this time around, and no one had to steal anything from each other. Since I'm fairly positive most of us played Smash Brothers, did I steal anyone's character when I picked Pikachu in this game?
No.
I would always play as Ness.
Who did everyone else play?
Nice.
Yeah.
Link.
I switched back and forth. Link, yeah. I switched back and forth a lot between Link, but honestly, I liked the big motherfucker Bowser also.
Yeah.
Can you remind me, was this Pikachu or was this the skinnier Pikachu?
Yeah, this was Pikachu. This is exactly what this was. Yep. So for those of you who are like, I guess, not retro-y like us, and you enjoy the modern Pokemon, and there's nothing wrong with modern Pokemon except for Scarlet and Violet trash, but you grew up in the fit Pikachu era, whereas to those who were there when Pikachu first came around, the chunkier the better. Like he was adorable because he was plush and thick,
Cuddly little chunk.
Exactly. And then we had to like go and slim him down.
This Pikachu ate carbs. Market. Okay, this was a this was a very hardy version of Pikachu.
The new Pikachus survive on berries.
Come on. It's like
Meanwhile, this one goes into an Italian deli every day, and they're like, "What would you want?" And he just goes, "Yes."
I was gonna say he goes to Cracker Barrel and he gets like the deep fried chicken with the gravy and the sunny side up eggs on it. You know, like he's indulgent to that that version of Pikachu. Okay. He speaks Huttese. Well, all right. So this is the portion that we did last time where we did have honorable mentions, which obviously isn't nearly as long. But if you do have an honorable mention, I know I came prepared, and Doug clearly did. What about everybody else?
Oh
Yeah, I've got one.
Backup.
I got one.
Okay, well, why don't we go like fantasy sports style? The snake will go back the other way. So Joe, it's back on you. What is yours?
Mine, actually, I got to share with Chelsea for the first time this weekend while her and the Crown Prince were visiting. And my backup game was actually Kid Chameleon for the Sega Genesis.
Wow.
And it was kind of this fun idea of like it's like an arcade and it's a virtual reality based arcade, but sometimes the violence was just too real. And there was a big boss in the game who was like hurting people, but then there was someone who just couldn't be beat, and his name was Kid Chameleon. And basically it is very much just Sega's attempt to rip off Mario in some capacity, as you can just traverse through levels, smashing blocks with your head, getting power-ups, and his power-ups in this case were really cool, like masks. So you could be anything from a samurai to literally
a knight.
A knight.
They're legit. They're insane. It's crazy.
There's so many levels though. Like I think there's maybe 100 levels in that game, and I maybe got to like the 30s or something. The difficulty factor starts just getting very intense.
Yeah, I don't think we made it past like the third world, like world 3.1,
like the set
this weekend.
Oh yeah, I mean, we didn't play it very long, but no, it was that. Nope.
But I think we did enjoy with the time we had like seeing some of the power-ups, especially the German skull guy inside the tank that shot out more skulls. Just wild.
Oh, that's
wild and crazy stuff. Nothing in particular, Nate. Definitely not anything history based or slightly touchy.
Every single power up just blew my mind more than the last power up. I was just, where are we and who made this game? And are they geniuses or insane, or it's probably both?
Yeah. Yep. Is it recognized genius, but also spent time with people wearing a straitjacket, you know, like
for sure.
They'd make crazy and wild claims like they invented the question mark. These are the kind of people that made this game.
Wow. I was not expecting that one tonight. But Chelsea, what did you bring for your honorable mention?
Yeah, my honorable mention, and I feel so sad that it has to sit here in second place, is Mario Kart 64.
Yeah.
Yep. Just for so many reasons. I mean, originally, I guess, because I started playing, with my mom, my dad, and my little sister, which was a blast because I would win every time. So that's a lot of fun. So much so where they started making me give up Bowser because they were convinced that he was just the better, faster character, which is not true. It's all skill. Oh
yeah.
And
completely.
I don't know. It's so great. I mean, the regular racing is amazing. The verses and the battle portions are just absolutely epic and make for some fun times, especially if you've had a few libations as an adult.
Drinking and karting, also great freaking times. And our terrible apartment with a pretty sweet sky roof.
Yes.
Skylight.
Absolutely.
This is what fueled most of my college days, because it was all about don't drink and drive. So of course we'd all just plow our way as close to the finish line as we could, and then it just came down to who has the will. Who wants this more than the next person?
Who can chug their beer the fastest at the finish line.
Do you know how many times when we were chugging at the end, I'd look over at Joe and Nate, no, Ron, one of my buddies, but it would be like, I didn't hear no bell. Just chug it and you're gone. And I was a horrible driver, by the way, sober or drunk, but I could drink like a son of a bitch. so yes, I could make up some distance at the end. Oh my God.
I love
Chelsea,
it.
excellent pick. Good
Right?
God.
I know. It's so good. Sorry if anyone else was lining up for that one, but
No, that was if I had a third place pick, that would have been it.
it's so solid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy you went 64 because that's where I went as well.
Mhm.
And I do have a story with this one that Nate may or may not appreciate, but
No, you stay off of it. No, stay off of it.
Not staying off of it. I will leave you in. I will leave you in.
We're not talking about it. It's not going to happen.
So, Nintendo 64. There's a lot of classic games on this one, but there's one specific one that made me, as I progressed through my gaming career, and that is WrestleMania 2000.
Nice.
Nice.
Yes. Published by THQ, premiered in 1999. This was the game that most of us were playing. I mean, everybody was playing WrestleMania. Now, Nate and I were WCW guys for a little while, but WrestleMania 2000 was just kind of just unchecked in terms of how great a game it was. It had the hottest wrestlers at the time. It was the best looking game that had ever come out within the realm of wrestling. And this game in particular, we could talk that stuff up all day. But the reason why I had this game make a very specific piece of me is because there is a cage match. And the cage match is actually not the easiest thing to do. Like, you can't always ensure that you have enough time to get from the base to the top before the other player can knock you down. Well, Nate and I had played this game quite a bit, and we got very good at it, playing against each other, playing against the computer, and me being the younger brother with just shittier, coordination and ability to play games. Yeah. It just wasn't happening. I wasn't winning against Nate a whole lot. Like, Joe, when you talked about having to throw the game, like, Nate and I were basically trying to keep each other sharp, okay? Like, playing this game together.
Steel sharpens steel.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that a true older sibling statement?
Yeah. Nate and I are talking like we're training with the League of Shadows over here. But so Nate and I fought viciously in this game against each other. Like, it never got personal, but it was always like you hated yourself when you lost, and it was me losing the majority of the time. Well, there was a moment where Nate and I had a very fateful cage match, and Nate and I were playing just like always, but it was like razor thin the margin for who was going to win this. And I used my special move on Nate. I don't know who he was playing, but whatever he was doing, like the death rattle, he's like doing the 64-bit shaking on the ground, and I go straight for that fucking wall, and I'm climbing up it. And it's like, I can just see the dude behind me shredding the guitar as like stuff's going on. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Am I actually going to get to the top of this wall? And Nate's still down there convulsing. He can't get up. And I'm like going, holy shit, this is happening.
I'm doing it.
Yeah. And that's when Dad pops in. He goes, are you winning, son? And I was like, holy shit, I'm winning.
I'm doing it, Pop.
I got to the top of the freaking wall in WrestleMania 2000, and Nate surprisingly looks over at me and he goes, I think the torch is passed.
Aww.
Yeah. You've gotten better than me. And I was not expecting that. I was floored. So I had a plaque made. I'm kidding. I don't have a plaque made. but that was a moment for me as a video gamer, that I finally beat my brother, who had consistently displayed these skills in the house. Granted, he still has gaming skills beyond my capabilities, but for this one moment, WrestleMania, that's why it's a game that made me, that steel cage match.
I was hoping that maybe he turned to you and said, yeah, brother, the powers have arrived.
Macho Man was not involved.
That was beyond his time.
Nate reached into his armband. And he's like, the cream. He just pulling it out of the sides of his ears.
Talk about having coffee in the big time. Ugh.
Mark not only mastered the reversals in that game really, really well, he also mastered knowing which wrestlers had the better light grapple moves. And so he would always pick the ones that had the STF. Or is it STF or STO? It's the one where you
it's the STO. It's the
STO. It's like, and you can use it in real life. That's the best part. Is
oh my God.
He would just walk up to me while I'm sitting around there and do an STO on me and on the floor, or it was like a rolling joke between the two of us. Like if you were walking, or during the same time, he would come up and hit you with a crippler crossface. If you were laying on the floor,
oh yeah,
out of nowhere, you just come up and crippler crossface, and you got to tap. And it was like all because of these stupid games.
No. The STO. We gotta describe this for people, because in the game, the STO is one of the cheapest moves possible, because if somebody tries to strike at you, no matter what's going on, you grab their arm and then you basically pull them closer to you so that you can push them back over your leg. So it's like a reverse leg sweep thing. And when you're walking past somebody in your house, this is why Nate and I did it to each other all the time, was that someone's momentum's going forward. Well, that's what the STO lives. Okay, that's what it lives off of. That's what it needs to survive. So you take that forward momentum, and someone's like unsure of what's happening as they're getting pulled close in. Next thing they know, they're seeing the sky as they're falling back over. So we did this all the time to each other. Yes, all the time. And it never stopped being funny.
Mark surpassed me in that game when there's a match in there that it's supposed to be insanely difficult to win, and it involves the wrestler X-Pac, and you have to go one-on-one with him, and I could never seem to get the right reversals, and Mark was the first to finally do it. And it was really because you can eventually win the title, but if you can beat him, it like takes you on a different variant to that story, and it's just about near impossible to win that match. Almost like it was intentional for you to lose and then come back up, but he managed to do it. So.
Hours upon hours, and Nate's not joking. We made each other better at that game. it was
I'm sure you did. No, absolutely. That's how you do it. That is how you get better in games like that. There is nothing that will drive you, first of all, like sibling rivalry, but just like someone else that's serious about a game playing with you alongside you in general. That's how it goes.
Yeah. The more touching story is how we ended up getting the game, which was we were in Wisconsin visiting my grandparents, and we were bored, and I just happened to have, I think it was like $60.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to either like Funko Land or Software Etc. and just bought it. Just buy this because we had used to play. It was WCW NWO Revenge, which has almost the same engine. An interesting lead up to this, or later development in this. So I go off to college, and there's a game called Def Jam Vendetta, made by exactly the same company, and it was a brand new game. And EA decided to have a tournament on the front lawn of my dorm.
Awesome.
So I walked up to there, and I won the first match and realized they had used exactly the same controls, just adapted for a PlayStation 2 controller. And I throttled 12 players to win. I won a copy of the game and a T-shirt and some money. And they were talking about, how are you so good at a game that just came out? And I said, this is the same game as WrestleMania 2000.
You reskinned a game, you lazy bastards.
Everyone was like, there's no way this guy is this good at this, because I knew everything.
That's amazing. That is such a cool story.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
And the best part was, like, Nate brings Def Jam Vendetta home to me, and then I get just sickeningly good at that game. It was so nasty. Like, oh, dude, I was disgusting with that game. I got offended by how good I was at that game.
And those games are expensive now. Both Def Jam Vendetta and Def Jam Fight for New York are like really expensive games because of there's the rap tie-in.
Yeah.
So now they're like $100 plus, $150 plus games because of that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And Def Jam Vendetta was like just crazy violent compared to WrestleMania. Like there's this clown character who will fold your body up like a pogo stick, and then he jumps on your arm while your head bounces off of the net. It was sick. It was awesome.
Old Chuckles with two Z's.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
Of course, with two Z's.
Def Jam Vendetta. That's you got to have the two Z's. All right. Well, I feel like we've lived through that one quite well. Doug, I know you've got one. What are you sitting on?
Well, I just want to say you're all making me feel like
I think we've lost Doug's sound.
He's on mute.
Yeah, I've been doing that.
There we go.
I just want to thank you all for making me feel like I'm like 130 years old, because picking games that were coming out when I was like already driving and stuff. And so I have this game here called Spy vs. Spy for NES. Is another 2-player versus game. And this one also almost had my number one pick. I don't know if you've ever played it, but it is very intense. You're in this kind of like commercial building, and you both start at different ends, and the whole purpose is to find a briefcase and then find all the items to put in the briefcase and get out of the building before the other person. However, there's just tons of traps you can set. So it's a split screen game, and you need to look at the other person's screen to know which doors they electrified, which spring they put in which case, because you're walking around looking for the items. And sometimes you might forget where you put a trap, and you're both just dying nonstop, and you have to play it as fast as possible. So this is another one that me and my brother used to play a lot. And then years later, I'm playing it with friends, and just like Super Dodgeball, another one you can, if you're playing with somebody for the first time, they will get as good as you in like within 10 minutes, because it's such a simple game to play. So it's really easy to find people to challenge. A little background on this game too. I found out that it was made by somebody named, well, he had a hand in it. It was Michael Rydell, who is a person who wrote video games in the 80s and worked on graphics and did a whole bunch of stuff for video games, mostly working on licensed games. A lot of times licensed games will get a bad rap. Like a lot of the LJN titles that people know of and things like that. This is one licensed game that is insanely good. But he also worked on things like Win, Lose, or Draw, remote control, some like game show games, but then some other things that are pretty decent, like Tom and Jerry and some of the Bugs Bunny games. So, yeah, here we are, probably my favorite licensed game ever made for Nintendo, Spy vs. Spy.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I remember like my biggest exposure to Spy vs. Spy was Mad TV.
Yeah.
Oh, when they would have the shorts later on?
Yeah, I loved those shorts. Yep, that was something, because like, I never got to play Spy vs. Spy on the NES. It was just one of the games that we didn't get around to because my parents invested way too much money into ET.
For me on NES, I had a lot of weird games that the other kids didn't have. Like, I didn't grow up on like the Mega Man and all of the popular Nintendo properties everybody knew, because we would always get like the used games nobody wanted, and a lot of times it worked to my benefit because a lot of them are really, really good. And yeah,
our parents kind of kept us forcefully on the NES for many years until, was it the Christmas of like 94 or 95? I think they got us the Genesis.
Yeah, that week after Christmas, we did nothing but eat leftovers, play Sega Genesis.
Yes,
sounds like a great day.
That is a beautiful Christmas vacation right there.
They wanted us to have longevity too, but it was always like, oh, can I get like the Ninja Turtles arcade game that costs $70 and every kit has, or can maybe I'll get like 4, kind of weird things.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think that's just that's perseverance, Doug. You persevered.
Yeah.
You made the best of what you could with what you had at the time. Which is frankly what we did too. We didn't always get the newest video games either. Most of the time it was because Nate would have money and he would go and buy one of those games. Although sometimes it'd be bundled with a video card, so it made it a little bit easier of a sell for him. But yeah, I mean, Nate, that was my recollection of acquiring games back in the day.
Yeah, I never had a lot of money, but when I did, I would always spend it on video games. So I always had something, because I would save exactly the amount for it. And usually the only thing that prevented me from getting a game was mom telling me you're not wasting your money on that, which is why it took, I think it was like 15 years to finally get a copy of Shining Force 2. And I got it for $2.99 out of a discount bin at a game store in Kansas. Even though I had loved that game, but that's not my second pick. It's just that's how my parents were. It was like how they felt that day about your money. It was never your money.
Yeah, she would say, "You're not wasting your money on that," and then she goes and buy those Longaberger baskets. I mean, who's actually using those baskets now, Mom?
See, that's funny, and I had the opposite experience where I had parents that were gamers. So, I mean.
I thought you were going to say that you like the baskets.
No, but try fighting your mom for who gets to play the video game. It might sound pretty great, but when you have it's not like it's a sibling. Oh, they're not sharing. I mean, who am I going to tattle on?
Well, that's kind of like part of our family's secret story is that my mom used to work in arcade back in the old days. And my dad would also go there. But, it only came up again in 1998 when they first started making MAME, the multi-arcade machine emulator. Mm-hmm. And I was able to get like the initial kind of slate of old 80s games on there. And I got a copy of Millipede and a copy of Galaxian.
Love it.
My mom, she was like, oh, is that Millipede? I love Millipede. And she had brought up a couple times our child when we rented it from the video store. It was the only game she would play. And then we found out the reason that mom didn't play it or shouldn't be playing it is she developed kind of an addiction to it. So we would leave her in the morning and she would go right over and start playing it. She wasn't eating. And we came home at night and dinner wasn't like anywhere close to being ready. So I just had to go throw something together. Mom's like, oh, whoa, I ran out of time. Like, I never saw anyone with a chronic game problem until then. I didn't know that was like a terrible trait to have. Just her and then my dad got into it. When we got Galaxy, and that was his game, and then the two of them were fighting over the computer.
I love it.
And then we eventually found some way to get rid of it, and they just kind of went back to being normal people again. Of time, because that stuff just didn't happen. It seemed like it was creating a dysfunctional household for just that 1 month. It was so weird.
Just that 1 month. Yeah,
that's called hyper focus.
before we get too far away,
they weren't anywhere close to as good as we would be at the same game, which was really funny. But
before we get too far, Nate, I know we kind of drifted from WrestleMania 2000 to Def Jam, but did you actually get to go over your runner-up game, or was Def Jam your runner-up?
No, I didn't actually. My runner-up game it's kind of a pathetic story, really, but I went off to college and I was younger than everybody else. And so it was a little hard to make friends. And so for somewhat of a maladjusted teenager with plenty of angst, all I really had at the time was my computer. And so I was trying to figure out ways to really use it. And I went down to one of my neighbors, and it was around the time that they started coming out with like Bleem and Connectix Virtual Game System, which was like the first really good way to emulate games on a computer. And so I was looking for PlayStation games to play, and I went down to my neighbor, and he goes, my roommate's out, but he's got some PlayStation games if you want to make a copy. And I was the only guy that had a CD burner on the floor. And so I said, sure, I'll burn them. And he goes, okay, but you got to bring him back like real quick because he hates you.
Okay. Great.
No problem. I'll get him back to you. So the game that he gave me was Final Fantasy VIII.
Nice.
Ooh. And so, it has a story that really appeals to a 16-year-old. It was super with characters that are dark and brooding, but somewhat of an uplifting ending. So I couldn't get really far in the emulators because they were kind of primitive at the time. So I didn't have a lot of money, but I took $100 and I walked 3.5 miles down to the mall and picked up a Voodoo 3 video card and a copy of Final Fantasy VIII for PC, which I still have to this day. And I played that game all the way through. Mark probably remembers it. It was like Christmas of 2000, 2001. And I finished it over break. But it was fun to do that because for me, like it just gave me some outlet for all of that. Like, well, I can't go doing the fun stuff with my other college friends because they're all, old enough to do fun stuff and I'm not. So I just and the reason I mention this is because just like maybe 3 months ago, like back when that game came out, they released a bunch of licensed stuff with it. So if you want to buy, the jewelry that the character wears in the games, you could if you had, gamer style money, which I didn't have. So I wanted the pendant that the main character has in that game. And I had to buy a crappy knockoff from Thailand on eBay for like $10 and it broke. So for years I was trying to get the actual one from that they released around that time. And I finally got it like 2 months ago.
Oh,
Nice.
congratulations.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing it right now. It's really pathetic of me, but it was like one of those things like your non-lived youth, like you couldn't have it when you were a kid. So you had to get it later. And I think that kind of represents a lot of like the game collecting that Mark and I probably have done was there were so many things that you just couldn't have. And as an adult, you make enough money, you can have everything you want.
I live in a room dedicated to that concept right now. That's what this entire space is.
Exactly. So, I mean, I had to go overseas on like,
Mark.
you got it right there.
Nice.
My little buddy Tychus.
Yeah. Griever pendant.
Which I remember this. I remember when it broke for Nate because he was sitting there and he had his leather jacket with the feathery down on the neck, and he had a 4.5 foot long sword and this broken pendant, and he just
as one does.
Hey,
yeah.
I'm just glad he didn't join that house and make a terrible decision to accidentally end up in a cult. So
Nate actually knew people in the Final Fantasy VII house, believe it or not.
Actually, I knew the founders of the Final Fantasy VII house, but that's probably something for another time.
Yeah,
I think
so like spooky stories.
Yeah, I'm very happy you ended up with the Final Fantasy VIII instead of 7.
Well, that's kind of how I mean. If I don't want, maybe this isn't the episode for it, but yeah, like I met the girl that started it and is kind of like the center of all the controversy behind it in a chat room related to Final Fantasy back in those days. So I did meet her too back then, which is even weirder. But it was like that all came out later that she had started this total like nut cult house, and I was like, same person. It really surprised me. She's totally nuts, but
that's how they get you into cults, man.
Yep, charisma. Yeah,
she didn't get me into the house because I was it's just a damn video game, and that was like what I told her, like, freaking video game, are you insane? And that was enough to get me like outside the circle of trust.
Yeah, you were too much of a big thinker, not malleable enough.
I think it's because I liked Final Fantasy VIII and not 7, and that's what.
That's what grounded you in reality, as opposed to her fantasy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I'm not shocked by the picks, but I'm really happy to have kind of walked down this memory lane with everybody, because that's what I think we loved so much about the first edition that we did of this, was that we all kind of got to hear something that maybe we hadn't been intimately familiar with or maybe hadn't played a whole lot of. And this time around, it's like we're all kind of familiar with these ones and the memories are all fond. I don't think that I have any negativity towards any of these games. These are all fantastic. So, but what I do want to say is absolutely thank you to everyone on this conversation. I still can't believe that we're 100 episodes in at this point. And Joe, I thought we'd be canceled at this point.
Oh, totally. I would have thought that we would have totally slipped up and said something that made our producers mad, and we just got the axe. But so far we've been lucky, mostly because our producers are 2 cats and the corgi that's currently sleeping behind me.
I was gonna say, is mine? Oh no, mine's gone. She's usually sitting right behind me, but she's gone now, unfortunately.
As long as the food's flowing, the episodes are on.
Oh my God. Well,
so
yeah, go ahead, Joe.
So on that note, big thank you to Chelsea, Doug, and Nate for making it back for our 100th episode, and a thank you to all of you who continue to listen 100 and really honestly 100 plus episodes in, because we've been doing a lot of either side stitches or mini series or additional episodes. So thank you to those who was following us on everything, whether it's this, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Facebook, You really do a lot for us, and we really do appreciate everything you do. That support and that continued dedication to our podcast. And it is a small podcast, and it's a day a week for you, and it's a big part of our lives. So we just really appreciate that you help us out by continuing to listen. And if you haven't, go ahead, leave us a review, or comment on the show somewhere. We also really like to read emails, especially Mark. So if you send us something at digitaldissectionpodcast@gmail.com, there is a very high chance that he's going to respond to it. And it can be anything. It can be ideas for future shows, things that we did that you liked, things that maybe you didn't like and would like to write a small book over how we screwed up. We will happily take it in any capacity. So thank you so much. And until next time, when we hit episode 200, keep on dissecting.